What's up, Tyler?
Hey.
We have a cool episode this week.
Do we? No, I'm just kidding. We just recorded. I know we do. I like today's episode. It's good.
Yeah, we have Dan and Emily Clark from Clark & Co. from Boise, Idaho. I mean, they've definitely convinced me to at least visit Idaho.
I mean, you were just in Idaho, right?
What was I in Idaho for?
Weren't you just in Idaho for some sort of convention or something?
Was I?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You were there. You sent me pictures from like a ski resort.
Oh, yeah, I was in Sun Valley.
Yeah, you were definitely in Idaho.
You know.
Yeah, so you visited again.
Sometimes I can just be such an idiot.
I don't have well, their website is clarkandcohomes.com.
Yeah.
Interesting business model. It's definitely something that could be duplicated, but I think that they're it's an interesting market. Like, they're putting out a custom level product, but it's almost like a speculative model. It's in between, right? I can't say it, like, they're controlling a lot of the customizations. So in that level, it's kind of like a spec, but a lot of times they are pre-sold. There's a customer there, so it winds up being custom as well. It's an interesting business model. It took me a little bit of time to figure out that was their bread and butter. But it's cool because I think that most people we've spoken to have just told us that they don't make money on their spec builds. That's just for marketing. It's just to put out product, to showcase their talent, and they've found a way to build a business that kind of thrives off of those type of homes and being able to execute them at a custom level.
Yeah, and I mean, even just the conversation around how important it is to build the brand and build awareness around your brand, giving the additional revenue streams that are a potential outside of just building and delivering a home at the end of the day. So I think there's a lot to consider and a lot of things that can be implemented. I'm not going to say easily, but with a little bit of work that, really can set a lot on autopilot, so you're not so cash crunched in an industry that is typically cash crunched.
Sure. And make sure you listen all the way to the end. That's not clickbait. For a little heartfelt message from us, kind of what we're thinking, where we'd like to take things. And obviously your input and suggestions are much appreciated.
So we have a lot to talk about today.
Excellent.
You guys were introduced to me by Brad. You guys were on his podcast, right?
Yeah.
And one of the immediate things I was so interested in learning about, and we actually talked about it down in Nashville, is beyond your business, and I'm jumping right into this. But beyond your business, you've found another way or multiple ways to create revenue, residual revenue based on what you do on a daily basis. And I think, and to elaborate on that, I think that is, it's not.
The suspense is real right now. Like, I want to know what they do. I'm unaware.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is,
I have a lot of things going through my head right now.
What is it that we could be alluding to?
It's interesting to me because I think that in this industry, as a whole, like, we oftentimes look at a project, we complete that project, hopefully get paid and make a profit on that project, and that project never makes us any money beyond that.
Right.
And there's the question is why. It's like, we hope that we get a referral out of it. We hope we get to take pictures of it and be able to use it as marketing material. But you guys have, talking about reselling the design and things like that, selling the plans for it, selling, why don't you guys explain what I'm getting at? But I just wanted to start that conversation because I think it's so interesting, and I think that, in business and in building and remodeling and contracting in general, people don't take advantage of opportunities like this, and you guys are.
Yeah, so it's a way to scale, right? Without having to work twice as hard. So it for us, it just kind of grew organically. In 2016, we had this big project that was published, and it was generating a lot of attention for us, and we were growing at that time on social media. We were just kind of barely getting into it on Instagram. And it was taking up a lot of our staff members' time, just getting contacts, emails and phone numbers, and where do I find this? What paint color was here? What light fixture is this? What are you using for your tile? And it really just came about from us saying, like, there's obviously an interest in this kind of information. And I guess just to preface, this is a home that we built as part of our local parade of homes. So it wasn't client attached. So it wasn't necessarily sharing information that was specific to one client. It was a spec project. So we felt like we for sure had the ownership of the design and the complete creative control. It was really a good representation for our brand. And it was pretty easy to just kind of take all of the answers to those most pertinent questions and put them into a downloadable format, and then say, like, every time we had those questions asked from us, we could say, hey, you know what, if you're interested in more information, then you can check us out here on this link on our website, and it's available for immediate download. So we do dimensioned plan sets of the plans that we produce in-house. They are not buildable construction sets, but they will give somebody that one-time usage license to be able to take that to their local architect or drafter and kind of get a head start on that design process. And then if they want to take it one step further, they can go ahead and purchase our design download package, which includes all of the specifications for the home as well. So that's an easy click download and money in our pocket. We really pay very little attention to it, except for like mentioning it every once in a while or linking to it in our company newsletter. But it's nice to just...
It was really just overcoming an annoyance in our everyday. What we were doing, we just had so much interaction that we weren't prepared for, and it really became a distraction to our regular bread and butter, so to speak. So we created this barrier, and it was just it started with a simple $25 download to just revert people, hey, here's the link or whatever, and it allowed us to get back on track, but it allowed us to have another revenue source. And that's where our eyes started opening and saying, okay, we've just invented a wheel, we're going to start selling it, and we don't need to reinvent it every time. And that's part of the, I guess, we've evolved into this thing, but definitely it was risky. We speculated on a $1 million house, which for the Boise market back in 7 years ago was pretty risky, but it's just been amazing to see the ancillary opportunities 7 years later. So out of a challenge became a opportunity for sure.
And I think that, like, you talk about this $25 price point. I can't tell you how many times I've come across something that has a small dollar value, like $25, and it's like, pay this and you can download it right now. It's I come across a spreadsheet I that helps me estimate better. It's like $25, you can download it. I'm like, all in.
I'll
it's
try
like,
it.
I know you really just want my email address, and I'm giving you $25, but hey, I'll do it.
We have those too.
Yeah, and it's short money for that person. It gets them all the information, and it's solving your, like you said, the annoyance of it. Can you share? Like, obviously, this has grown, and I feel like I have so many questions around this, but can you share what that value is for maybe in the course of that first year? Like, how many people actually downloaded and what that dollar value might look like?
I can't speak to the first year. I think certainly as our Instagram audience grew, the rate at which we were getting downloads grew, and I mean those, like $25 to up to $500 is kind of the price spread that we've got on our products. Certainly, like, picked up in Steam. I think the last time I checked, the total sales for those products was, in the high thousands of dollars. They just add up really, really quickly. So sometimes it's best to, like, because we have different price points, like both both the $4.99, like they can kind of like take a little dip in a smaller investment. Like for $25, you can see the floor plan and make sure like that it works for you. And then if it does, then you can, download the dimension one, which includes the elevations and the numbers and stuff, so that can actually be helpful to produce a construction set. So it's just kind of like an easy buy-in. And another thing that we do to kind of get people aware of what we do as far as the download area is every time we do a newsletter for our audience, we'll promote it on Instagram, and then we'll say like we have a download freebie with every single newsletter. So the first time they sign up, we'll send them our magazine that we've put together that's got all photos of our homes and all of our favorite paint colors. I mean, because that's our number one most asked question, right?
Yeah.
So that's an easy lead magnet. And then, of course, it's like if they take this product and they download it, I mean, my logo's all over it. So like that's something residual that they're keeping with them that they can refer back to. And then, you never know, may bring you more business in the future. And then every new newsletter has something new in it that's a downloadable product, like spring home maintenance tips. And again, it's going to all feature photos of our work with like a checklist of things to do to get your home ready for spring. We put those out quarterly. We do ones that are like our, top 10 favorite light fixtures that we're loving right now, or here's cleaning products that we love to take care of your home. And then those also have some affiliate revenue opportunities as well. If we focused a little bit more on that, we probably could get some links going there. And I don't know, we do have our own Amazon shop, so people can shop off our downloads and, add things to their cart as well. So it's not we're not hugely into that part of it, but that's like the next layer I think that we have that this kind of opportunity affords us.
I do kind of love the paint color question where people ask you what, like, that looks great. What paint color is that? And I'm like, you're staring at that on a tiny picture on your phone where all of the color is probably edited on your phone and different. And it's like, it's just, what are your favorite paint colors in this tone maybe is a more appropriate question. But like when people ask, that looks great, what paint colors? It's like, it doesn't even look like that in person.
I know. It's so hard to represent that on a screen. I know. Right?
It's it always cracks me up when people ask. I'm like, I'll tell you what paint color it is, but like, just because it looks good on your phone right now does not mean that that's going to look good in your space.
You do feel like you need that disclaimer on everything, like go sample this first. Don't just take our word for it.
It's like, honey, I realized why the living room looks so bad. I didn't paint it with the color that Tyler painted his room with. So let's just get that color and we'll be good.
What color tone are your lights?
I'm sure their light is exactly the same. The natural light coming into the space, just the same. All of their other undertones. Yeah, like people don't really realize that there's a lot else that goes into that one paint color selection, but it's an easy answer. It's great for engagement. I mean, it's one other comment to get on your Instagram. Yes, here's the paint color. And oh, by the way, if you'd like to know all of our paint colors, you can sign up for our newsletter and we'll send you a magazine with all of our favorites. So
I think that's even helpful to see colors that are coming together and how they interact with each other. In multiple spaces. I think that's important as well. But again, it's like the what's that pink? What's the color of that one cabinet in this entire house? Always cracks me up. But what was the reaction initially to people? When you would tell them, "Hey, you can go check this out on this website." Like, did anybody get upset about that, or was it like a positive engagement?
No, because I think I try to give them a little bit of information and then follow up. So it's not just like straight off the bat, like, here's my sales pitch. I'm not going to tell you anything unless you like cross my paywall. Like, I try to keep it pretty conversational. Like, yeah, I'd love to send you in this direction. And here's an added bonus. If you want to take this one step further, then we have this available to you. And for the most part, like, I can't even think of any like negative experiences that we've had with it.
I feel like that's better than me just ignoring comments.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
alternative.
Answer that.
Right? Like that.
We did a lot of deleting of emails and voicemails. I mean, really, we were just inundated, and it's such
like
a simple
house,
question.
like messages on off of the house platform,
House
like
is
would
terrible.
was all
I
day
mean, at
long.
least for
So
my experience.
Yeah.
yes,
It's, and there's people that say, "Oh, I get all my business from House." I'm like, I don't know how.
I don't
Maybe
get
I'm in
it
the
either.
wrong market. Maybe it's because I don't pay them. But it's like we're
Yeah.
listed as a home builder that builds $2 million to $10 million homes, and I got a guy calling me asking me if I can build him a kitchen stool. And it's like,
yeah.
why am I
That's
getting
the
small
disconnect.
woodworking projects? But
So are most of those jobs that you're able to do that on spec builds, or are you able to do that on customs, like for a specific customer?
We don't produce them for any of our client
Okay.
attached projects. So typically we will do a spec, or like we call them, like a concept home or a model home, a few of those every year. And so, yeah, that's the opportunity for us to just kind of market the heck out of them. And we are always shooting a virtual tour of that space. So that lives on our website 24/7. And we kind of release those slowly on Instagram, and then as much as we can try to link back to those downloads. Once we've kind of released it and people have had a chance to fall in love with the project. I mean, a lot of times people have seen us like start that project and have come along for the journey right from groundbreaking. And so by the end, they're pretty invested and they are familiar with the layout of the house. So even if they haven't seen a floor plan, they feel like they've kind of lived there in their head a little bit. So they really are kind of like putting themselves in that, like, or what, I guess what's the
visualizing
term? Like they're directing themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not selling that product. They've already sold it to themselves,
Yeah, I was just curious about that. I was like, if you were building a house for a customer and then you're just basically telling them everything you picked in their house, how would that work out?
Yeah.
But I do see that you guys do a fair amount of specs, which would make sense. And it's just one more thing to kind of put out there and produce, generate some sort of income there. And also that's producing more and more engagement and content for you as well.
Yeah. Well, that every time you do like a high-end spec like that too, there's a lot of things that you put into that house that you're not necessarily going to get back from the sale of that one home anyway. So it's always been our strategy to kind of think outside the box marketing wise, and how can we like stretch the marketing opportunity of that house as much as possible. I mean, that one project that kind of started it all for us from 2016, this month is on the cover of a magazine. They did a whole spread. I literally just found out about it today. I didn't even know what was happening, but that's how long that those projects have been able to continue to build our business, because we,
That's awesome.
for one thing, invested in the professional photography way back then, and chose really classic finishes and things. So the project's aging well. So here, 8 years later, it's still relevant. So yeah, those are.
As you kind of say that, I mean that I know that Nick does a more modern type of building, even though he's in New England and Boston. I did read somewhere that you're from the New England area. Do you think that that's something that kind of derives from your roots, bringing in that more like classic, timeless design and architecture?
For sure, I was influenced heavily by New England architecture. I mean, I feel like most of my friends growing up lived in 100-year-old farmhouses. So like that level of craftsmanship. I mean, I would come home from high school for lunch and I would watch This Old House. I mean, I just was like always super into it. And I just have a real love for that style and that level of finish work. And so I do think that's something that we very intentionally brought into our design work in the Idaho area. At the time we started our company, it was like in the height of, it was 2011. So like the stucco, wrought iron,
Lovely.
yeah, like Tuscan inspired home was like still really big in our area. And to bring in like the farmhouse, the white house with the black windows, was like huge for Boise, and it was very refreshing. I mean, it was huge everywhere, right? That was right when Chip and Jo were doing their thing. So we kind of capitalized on that a little bit, and it really defined our brand.
Nothing says
from the
the
get-go.
outdoors in Idaho like some beautiful stucco mansion.
No, I know, right?
I don't get how that house style has. It can't be like that inexpensive to do. Also, like I just don't get how that became the choice, the go-to for so many
I don't
of those
either.
production
And
builds.
there's like this stigma too in our area that like a stucco house is a really high-end house.
I don't
like
get it.
your
But they're
HOA,
styrofoam.
CCNRs. I know we don't understand. I'm like we've had some fights with like Architectural Review, for neighborhoods, like saying we want to do this really high end like lap siding and it's like far and above more
Cedar
expensive,
shake,
or
and they're
whatever. And they're
fighting
like,
us.
no, it needs to be this percentage of stucco because that's like their gold standard. And I'm
But
not
it's
sure
even-
like
is
what
it even
marketing that
considered
company.
stucco?
I think a lot of commercial builds are styrofoam. I know all the houses around us that they did stucco was, framed with sheathing, and then they were putting up tar paper, and like a lot of the failures happened when they switched to Tyvek. And it wasn't even something that they knew, but when they were putting up the tar paper with traditional stucco, they were putting 2 layers of it, and the water driving through the stucco, and then it was actually, hitting that tar paper, and the tar paper was getting wet and then drying and creating almost a drainage plane there, and that was preventing the stucco from failing because all of their moisture management, there wasn't a true drainage plane, their flashings were incorrect, and it prevented them from failing just by chance. And I know that once they switched to Tyvek, it was, the water getting in there, the Tyvek wasn't getting wet and then wrinkling and creating that drainage plane, and that's when like the massive failures kind of took place. But it wasn't like commercial construction where they're building the houses out of foam and then putting like a stucco over it.
Everything around here, it's sheathing, full waterproofing, and then they're doing some sort of like 2-inch foam and then stucco right on top of the foam.
But that's just high-end New England architecture.
But it's not, I mean, I've seen it done right. And
Some beautiful stucco corbels.
I've seen, yeah, exactly.
Maybe a brown instead of a tan.
I walked a few projects down in Austin, Texas, and like they were doing a real traditional stucco on masonry. So, they had a traditionally framed home, but they're, had a full masonry wall in front of it that was completely stuccoed.
I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it makes more sense to bring in more of a traditional architecture. I mean, anywhere, but in Idaho as well.
This podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. I've talked about it a bunch of times now, but we are working with them on our Needham project with Steve Teak. I'm super excited because they're, right now we're going through the whole process of understanding all of the custom moldings that are, on the home, working with the team over at Duration to understand how that stuff's going to be fabricated. We have curved roofs with curved crown. So all of that is going to be made in Duration shop. They're going to work with us on the details and then help us produce the technical shop drawings and then turn that stuff around super, super fast.
Yeah, I kind of listening to you say this and having the conversation with these guys on the podcast, and the term custom, I feel, it gets thrown around a lot, and what Duration's able to do is truly custom. Like what you're doing on this house is truly custom. It's one-off. They have the ability to do that and do it quickly and efficiently and with the product that's going to last forever. And in my mind, that's custom. That's what a custom product is. That's what a custom builder is. So if you're looking for truly custom, lead times are not a huge consideration there. They're able to turn around anything that they have their hands on pretty quickly. And the price point is amazing considering the product. Definitely give them a shout.
Yeah, if you want to see more about what they do, durationmillwork.com. Make sure you check them out on Instagram as well. This podcast is brought to you by Rental Run. So building materials exactly when you need them. I swear I see them come through our receipts and invoices every week. The guys are always using them.
Getting that coffee, man.
They are getting coffee, but they're also making sure that they're getting those last minute materials. And I'm seeing the orders get bigger and bigger. And it's, what I was afraid of in using a service like this is that it would breed laziness, where it's like, oh, I just need one more tube of caulk, I'll just call run. And it's not. These guys are, actually realizing that this is a really beneficial tool to our process. And it's like, yeah, rather than leaving and going and get a handful of things at the hardware store or Home Depot or the lumberyard, it's like, no, I can hop on my phone, I can go in the app, I can click off what I need, and that stuff's going to be there in a couple hours, and we can continue to work on the job site and not worry about losing all that time.
Yeah, this is somewhat off topic for that, but being that we do have a voice in the world and in the industry, Reno Run will obviously drop off small products for you if you need something in a pinch. My head went to Amazon, where it's the same thing. It's very convenient, but I think at the same time, as a generation, as human beings, it is our responsibility, as somebody who's paying for their service, to do a takeoff. Like, figure out what you need, get the items, make that delivery worth it, get all your stuff there, less trucks on the road, less fuel. It's going to help everyone with pricing at the same time, help the environment. Like, it's amazing to have these convenient services, but don't get lazy. Like Nick said, like, do your homework, get the stuff you need to the job, do full takeoffs, be thorough, and use their service to the best of your what you can do. I think that as a whole, we need to do that, and we need to be thinking things through, especially with the state of our economy right now and everything else. Like, everything's a ton of money. Make as little trips as possible and get everything that you need, and be thorough. Order stuff ahead of time, and then use Reno Run to do that.
And if you guys are still on the fence, head over to www.podcast.renorun.com/Modern Craftsman and let us pay your first delivery fee and give it a whirl yourself. This is if you are in Montreal, Toronto, Boston, Chicago, Philly, or Washington, D.C. This podcast is brought to you by Rockwool, high-performance, fire-resistant, soundproofing stone wool insulation for interior and exterior walls. They have this new program. It's a couple months old now, but the R-Class program. It's a premium partnership program for builders who demand more, and a community for those who take great pride in their craft and always looking to learn more about better materials and installation techniques. We are working on every project with Rockwool. They are helping us detail everything out. One of the things I always tell Dan, who I work with a lot over there, and Nick Stone, is that you guys are upfront with us. When your product makes sense, you show us how to use your product in the best manner. When it doesn't make sense, you guys are explaining how we should approach that situation. Either maybe we're modifying the structure to accommodate a Rockwool comfort bat, or we're using a different product because the Rockwool comfort bat doesn't make the most sense there. Either way, they've become a really important partner for us, especially when we're in the design phase, getting ready to start framing, which is exactly where we're at with our need and build right now. And they've worked through almost all of the details, if not all of them at this point, on how we're going to insulate that house.
Yeah, I don't use a ton of Rockwool. Just, we don't do huge jobs. I do a lot of renovations. We use it primarily for fire blocking, soundproofing, a little bit of insulation. But to me, the big thing that sticks out with that, I had a buddy text me the other day where he's like, I'm installing fiberglass insulation, and I'm so itchy right now, I can't imagine what this stuff is doing to my lungs. And I was like, yeah, you should probably have on a dust mask, and just thought about how terrible it is working with fiberglass, cutting fiberglass, having to compress it to cut it, and the inefficiencies of it. If you want a much more pleasurable, efficient experience, try some Rockwool, and you'll be far less itchy too.
And if you guys want to join that R-Class program, head over to rockwool.com/R-Class, and they'll actually send you a welcome pack, and it has a bunch of goodies in it, including a flannel, and we can be twins.
I think it's twinsies.
Oh, twinsies. Yeah, you're right. This podcast is also brought to you by Upstate Merch. This is our partner for our swag at Modern Craftsman. I know TRG's got a bunch of Upstate merch. NS Builders, Materia Millwork, we've all worked with Upstate. Quality focused screen printing, embroidery, and graphic design shop in Whitney Point, New York. For over 12 years, they pride themselves on not only using the best materials and American-made tools to get your job done, but they also have a highly trained staff and graphic design team that will walk you through the entire process. So whatever you're looking for, giveaway shirts, embroidered hats, safety wear, polos, hoodies, top quality garments to outfit your team, they have you covered.
There was a guy on Instagram, Wild Acres Construction, I believe out of Texas, and he was posting some pictures of the mock-ups that Upstate sent them, that he was getting some t-shirts made for them, which is awesome to see. We're spreading the word. It's proving to be a valuable investment for the guys, Dylan over at Upstate, and it's cool to see these people, going to these companies that we've used for years and sending them their business to them. So I'm excited to see that. If you're using them, if they're sending you mock-ups, definitely post some pictures to your stories, to your Instagram, tag us. We'll try and repost that. So thanks to everyone who's letting us know about that. Thanks to Dylan for always taking care of everyone. And if you need t-shirts, hats, hoodies, flannels like Nick, whatever, give them a shout. They'll be able to help you out.
Yeah, make sure you email them print@upstatemerch.com. And if you mention the Modern Craftsman podcast, you can receive 10% off your first order.
The stucco here is very inexpensive still compared to what we do. So there's some areas though that stucco is kind of a high-end finish and more labor and intensive, but just more costly for some reason. But here it's perceived in our minds as cheap, but there's clients that think it's an elevated finish, and we're saying, well, it's half the price, from a lap siding or a James Hardy product. But that's where we started. That's kind of where our footprint in Boise 12 years ago, I guess. We were pushing siding more, and everybody else was still on the stucco bandwagon. So
yeah, I mean, I want to build coastal homes, and that was different for Boise, and it was something that really set us apart. And again, it was like all of the finishes, even on the interiors, were so heavy and dark and masculine that, like, to see light and bright was like a revelation here. And really all around the country. I mean, like, you look at that modern farmhouse genre, and that's still, as much as it's killing me because I'm like kind of over it, but like it's still so popular. It's still like one of our highest engagement like photographs whenever we post those on Instagram. Like, people are still loving it. So
it's so, the conversation we've had about windows and light and brightness in a home, I know homes were built with small windows because they weren't really good insulators. And they wanted the walls to insulate better and keep the heat in. But as we've grown and developed better products and windows that can be really really good insulators, triple pane windows, things like that, and you're starting to see bigger windows, bigger glass, bigger expansive light, and I think people are starting to really appreciate what light does, and that's where you get into good design. And one of our projects, Julia, who has designed and will be owning the home in Rhode Island that we're building, that's a lot of that house is designed around the light, and how light reacts throughout the space. And when you can make that connection, to a client and them understand it, it's one thing. But when a client doesn't understand it but sees and appreciates it, which is, I think, where like this Chip and Joanna thing and Studio McGee, like all of their homes, like when they upload their photographs, it's all about how bright that space is. And,
right, because they're all photographing them without any lights on, right? So you can really see exactly what the opportunities are with just your natural light in the home. Right,
and it's, and I walked a home just this week, and the home's 100-something years old, absolutely gorgeous. Millwork throughout, really, really detailed interior trim and paneling and everything. And the first thing they said is, we want to paint everything white. And I'm walking around, I'm like, it's really a shame, because the woodwork is so well done, but I understand. Because when you walk in there, like you said, it's really masculine, it's really dark, and it's not overly inviting. Yeah, it's really interesting to look at, but the 3-story staircase that you're standing in when you walk in the front door is quite overwhelming. And
Yeah.
if it was white, it would still be overwhelming. And for me, I've been noodling on this all week. It's like, all right, how do I respect the work that went into that, and not just go in there and spray latex finish over everything, and
Right.
and actually paint it in a way that makes sense. Maybe it's an oil brush finish or something like that. Just how do I do it in a way that is respectful of all the work that went into it without just completely ruining it? And I think this is where that whole modern farmhouse, the negative backlash it gets, it's like it has to still needs to be thoughtful. Putting
Right.
black windows with white siding doesn't make it a modern farmhouse. And
Right.
that's the general consensus.
No, you got to throw a metal roof on there, one or two, just like
paint the brick.
accent
Put some
roofs,
chicken wire
standing
somewhere.
seams. You'll be good. Some
Yeah.
galvanized window wells. You're set.
Yeah, I remember when we built that, we had an architect, husband and wife team drive by. We had just painted the rustic red brick. And they loved the red brick. And then when it went all white, they just looked at us and they said, this
How
is
could
the,
you do
the
that?
stupidest thing, And
Sacrilegious.
we were the first house that was white and painting brick. How crazy. And then every house on the block went white. And painted brick was this huge fad. And anyway.
Yeah, and so I'm actually find it refreshing that we're seeing that the trend go back towards some more of those moody colors, and being more of a mix where you've got like a light and bright space that then kind of goes into like this jewel box kind of a room. So you've got these different emotions that each space is kind of bringing out for the homeowner. And I think that that's just kind of a reaction of how much more we're exposed to design now than we were 10 years ago. Like everybody's on Instagram now, and there's just so much great work being shown, and it changes so quickly that I just feel like it's hard for one trend to really sit really for a long time in just that one thing. Now it's just like there's constantly new things happening. So it's like
Well, it's
an
funny
anything
because, like,
goes kind of.
People go into these spaces and say, all right, rip all the walls down, make it open concept, paint it all white.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the extreme, and it's like, all right, now you're ruining what open concept was intended to be.
Right.
And, like you said, the jewel box or these moody rooms, I love that. It's like, the whole house is super, bright and light and airy, and then you have this one room that's the office, and it's painted dark gray. And it's that moody room. It's got dark leather couch in it or something. But, not only are we trending back towards the moody colors, I think we're doing it with a lot of, juxtaposition of light and bright rooms, but also we're creating this compartmentalized living again, where it's like, now it's not now it's not a kitchen, dining room, living room with a little desk in the corner. It's the desk is over on the other side of the home in an enclosed room.
Well, don't you think that's like a total reaction to COVID? I mean, we've all been in these spaces, like we're all together all the time, and we're all like, okay, actually some time away is healthy for our family. And so like, let's bring back a few walls and have like a more defined purpose for each room, right?
I think I do think it's a reaction to COVID a little bit, but I don't necessarily know if I agree that it's like spending the time with the family or realizing everyone in one room doesn't work. I think it's more just we kind of what you just said, but we're spending so much time in our home that we realize that we did a really crap job designing this. Or considering how we're going to use it, because the time that we were using it, I think if I sat here and thought about how much time I'm actually in my home, it's very little.
Yeah.
I'm either sleeping or I'm eating or wrestling the kids to get to bed. I'm not that's the time I spend in my house, and on the weekend we're out. We're going somewhere else. We're walking around the city or something. And when you're forced to sit in that space, that's the reaction I think we had, is that, hey, now let's be a little bit more intentional. If we're going to have to stay here, like you see it all over social media constantly. It's like, we've been trapped in our home for 2 years, so we decided to renovate it, and now look what it looks like. It's like,
right.
I mean, that's the extreme reaction to it.
I do somewhat agree with what Emily's saying, though, because I feel, even though we're out of the house a lot, there's a lot more people who are working from home and everything else.
Yeah.
And I think that, the when I think open concept, or like that would be really ideal for living, I think of, a vacation house or somewhere where you're going to spend a week, or summers where you're there. You want everyone to be intermingling the entire time and have that where it's like, I don't know, I'm home now and I want to be able to put my kids somewhere where we can have 2 seconds, it's like the only privacy. Well, not even, but a bathroom where it's again? like a bathroom should be private and it's not after having children. Right. But it is. It's like, I live in an older house and there's rooms, and it's nice to be able to have the kids have their playroom that's separate from the kitchen, and the TV room be separate and isolated. And I don't think for daily life that I would want everything open to like, I like to be able to hide shit too, where it's like, don't go in that room.
True.
That door's closed.
I know,
we're not
right?
all living this Instagram
you don't need
life.
To see. Yeah, for sure. I think that for us, we're experiencing like a real reshuffle just in the Boise area of like the demographic of who is coming to Boise. Like all of our clients are coming to us from out of state now too. So there's a lot of people that are coming and because they can work remotely from anywhere. And so they need to have a space that they can do that quietly and professionally and still be a part of the home, but like mentally have that transition where now I'm going into this space and this space is for work, and I'm leaving all of my, family worries and whatever behind, and I'm taking care of what I need to here before I then come back into the family. And, so that's been really important for our clients. We're also seeing a lot of like multi-generational opportunities where people want to bring mom and dad, or maybe like an older college kid has come home. And so they still want those spaces where they can be together and kind of have those together times, but then like that privacy time is just as equally valued. So we need to kind of balance what we have as far as the public and the private spaces within the home.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, Nick.
Good.
It's interesting that you say that. I was reading a couple articles about the Boise market. And I had kind of known this, but how many people were moving from out of state, even California, to Idaho, and kind of transplanting because they can work from home. And even obviously your market is insane right now. But even like your demographic with people who are moving there, it's interesting to see the home prices kind of skyrocketing. But it's still a lot of younger people who are moving there, where, I read that in 2019, it was voted, the best place to live for millennials. It's always in the top 10 of places to live for outdoor lifestyle. And I think that, that coupled with the pandemic, there's like a ton of people moving to that area, and how the demographic has changed there so quickly.
Yeah, Dan grew up in this area, so you can speak to like the change that you've seen.
Yeah.
And the growth.
Oh yeah. There's just a lot more traffic now for sure, but there's such diversity, and being a Boise boy, I can't say that, can I? That's another show. There's just definitely been an evolution over the last 10 years. The growth has just been crazy, but yeah, I think what's great about Boise is we've always, I always wanted to get out as a kid and thought it was just podunk town. And then everybody came to town and was like, do you realize what you've got here? And we're kind of in this insulated bubble in the Rocky Mountains. And
we thought about it when we were first married. Like,
yeah.
Dan would be like, did you know that the Boise motto is like Boise, the city of trees? And I was like,
that's truly the name of the city.
I was like, but I'm from Maine.
Yeah.
it's like, it's not even close. Like,
the guys crossed the desert when they found
what
this
are we
place,
doing
and they saw
here?
the first trees ever. So
yeah,
that's what they named it.
I think I remember asking your sister-in-law, like when we had first moved there, I'm like, what do people do here? And she was like, well, it's a great place to raise a family, like barbecue in the
That's the
backyard.
go-to.
I was
That's
just
the
like,
go-to.
okay, yeah, only ever knew it as a pit stop, but man, I've really grown to be totally converted. Like, it's a great place to be. Like you say, the outdoor opportunities are awesome. There's, skiing and rafting and mountain biking and all those good things that people are definitely coming from, like millennials all the way to like downsizers, like whole families, like different generations are coming together because this is like a great place that they can see like sinking down their roots for the whole clan, so
Well, I had a meeting with the client yesterday. He's from Newport Beach, and he just said, this was a rough winter. I'm not going to lie. Like, this was tough on me. And so we have some of those seasons that are tough, and you just have to grin and bear it and get through it. And then summer's nice, but we do have 4 seasons.
yeah.
But I think what, for me, being from this area, what I think is fascinating is just what we don't have. And so you hear these stories from people from California that say, I couldn't leave my kid at the bus stop. I had to wait till the bus, and just the safety and the political issues. And I mean, just blows my mind. So I was definitely insulated in this bubble of Boise. But those disparities are huge and that's why people during the pandemic, we had a model home that we had just finished, and the pandemic hit 30 days later, and it was a ghost town, and people didn't know what to do. And then the reactions started in these different areas, and people just started making the exodus. And they'd show up at our model home with their U-Haul van and say, we don't know where we're going, but what can you tell us about your town? We've got to make a decision of where to go. And we became the visitors bureau, and just educating them on our town and whatever. And we finally had to shut the door and do appointment only because it was crowd control. So it's been fascinating to see the migration happen through this town. And
Hold
like
on,
you're saying, the
I wanna
values have skyrocketed for sure. And that's becoming an issue. I think it's less affordable now than ever.
I
And
think, well,
it
it's
needs
like
to subside
it's the most
sooner than later. It's not healthy
overinflated.
for anybody.
Yeah.
We always say, who's buying this house? Like, what do they do? Are they the CEO at HP? What's going on? And definitely we're seeing those people that can work anywhere, and they've got the California salaries, but it's at somewhat of an unhealthy level, and that trajectory has been that way for at least 2 years since the pandemic hit. And we're starting to see reality set in a little bit, obviously, with the inflation and rates going up. I think it's going to be a plateau and some healthy leveling off for sure.
What were you going to say, Nick?
I just want to make sure I understand. So you guys had a model home, and you had to do appointment only because you had so many people just stopping by Boise, Idaho.
Well, people were super sensitive about COVID, so we were trying to be respectful. We put in
I
these
understand
HIPAA
that.
filters or whatever, but it became.
But
mean
yeah,
more the
we
fact that
couldn't
you had
just
that-
have the door open and people come and go because there were too many people coming at that point.
So I've never been to Boise, Idaho. When you said a couple minutes ago, you said you've only known it as a pit stop. So is it a big pit stop? Like for people that are on the road?
I only say that
This is
because
the way I'm envisioning. I'm envisioning like cars, like Radiator Springs. Everyone just
there's a
stops there for
McDonald's.
minute.
right, like
One
when I was a
stoplight.
kid, like my mother's Canadian and she's from Alberta, so we would have these family road trips, and like Boise would be the point where we would stop for the night and swim in the hotel pool and then like continue on the next morning, and that's like literally all I knew about Boise when Dan and I.
Yeah, when I
so
told
like
her I
I
was from
knew the
Boise when we
freeway
first
and I
met,
knew the
she was very
hotel off the
passive-aggressive.
freeway, and I was like,
That's the pit stop
Boise.
city. Yeah. So,
but
all these years
it's
later,
grown on me. Although I will say, like, if I get real homesick, all I've got to do is head north about an hour and a half, and it looks just like New England up there, trees and lakes and mountains for skiing and stuff like that. So it's kind of a good place to be.
I was doing a fair amount of reading this morning about Boise, and I feel like, the catalyst for all of this growth had started pre-pandemic. And then it was probably similar to a lot of areas where it hit and things probably had like a standstill and then all of a sudden exploded at 3-4 times the rate.
correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I sent Nick some of this info about the real estate market in Boise, and median list price of houses for April 2021, which was a year ago, had gone up over 30%. The sold price over 36%. Price per square foot up 41%. Median days on the market 4 days for a house, which is like,
Yeah.
that's insane. And the amount of homes for sale, 0.3 months supply down, almost a point, which is like, you think of, again, a place like Boise, and it was starting to grow and people were starting to kind of come into to town and then gentrify a little bit, and younger people moving there, and it's like, it's an impossibility to move there at this point. Like, again, like you said, who can afford it? Who can get a house? How are you even considering that an option when it's like median days on the market's 4 days?
Yeah,
So is
certainly
everyone
for
just
our
building?
Idaho residents, it's hard for them to move up. Like, could they easily sell their house? Yes, but to get to something else, to be able to find land to build on that's not been like kind of gathered up by a bunch of national builders that are now coming to town, or just to be able to afford the price of that land to start with, not to even to mention what it's going to cost to build on top of that. Yeah, it's definitely become an issue for local Idahoans for sure. I don't think that we've really seen the out-of-state buyer hit by it too hard yet, but I think that it's starting to kind of level off, is what we're seeing in the last couple months.
How does that feel, Dan, being that you're somewhat native to that area? Because I could see, being from there and kind of having your roots there, and then all of these changes taking place, and it's exciting at first, and then it's like, wait, hold on, what's happening to like our little town?
It's a double-edged sword. Obviously, being in the business, I want the business, but at the same time, my town has evolved into the next Denver. And that's what people tell me. They say, just imagine Denver in 15 years. This is what Boise will be. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just different, right?
It's a transition,
I think,
for sure.
yeah, to answer your question, I think I'm looking for the next Boise,
Yeah.
So in the back of my mind, I'm like, Cheyenne, Wyoming, what do you look like?
Yeah.
So like, where do I go? And, at this point, it's been great. I mean, there are wonderful people. We've got great clients, but they come respecting the values that they're being told about, and so they're very complementary to what we as a community already are. So it's built on it very positively.
Well, and it's what it's allowed us to do is be a little bit more considerate about who we take on as a client. I mean, I know that both Dan and I, we started our business right after the recession, like when we were just barely coming out, and Dan had worked previously for a couple other builders before that time. So we definitely had residual stress from those times in our lives. So we were pretty conservative. And, when you're first starting out, you're saying yes to everything just because you need the work and you need the experience.
Fine, whatever, we'll do it.
Yeah,
I did not do that.
I have
Everything but.
all day long.
But now, because there is such a demand and we haven't really ramped up our capacity, really, we're still staying kind of at that boutique builder level. It has let us be a little bit more choosy on what, making sure that we are aligning ourselves with clients that really have a healthy respect and trust for what we can do, and what, like, our portfolio kind of speaks for itself at this point. So I don't have to do, again, a lot of that sales pitching to them about why I'm a better builder than the next guy. I mean, because they're coming to us because they've already followed along with our journey and they've already decided that we're the ones for them. And now I get to say if they're the ones for me, you know what I mean? So I know that it's not always, may not always be the case, but right now that's the experience that we're having. And it's really been quite nice because we're in a relationship with these clients for sometimes over 2 years. And so you want to make sure that the people that you are working with that closely on a daily basis are people that you really love. And we just had a handoff for a client just a couple weeks ago, and that we had started that project pre-pandemic and kind of been through all of the issues that have come along with that, and the lead times, extensions and things. And it's just such a joy to be able to hand over that project and really feel so like emotional about it in a good way, not like kick you out the door and like I hope we never see each other again kind of a way, but like I'm so happy you're here in my town and we're going to be best friends forever kind of a relationship, you know.
Are most of your customers transplants at this point, or is it local
Yes.
people? Yeah, so it's either
The
out of town,
majority.
out of state, which I'm sure
Correct.
that you
There's
know.
a few that like have been here maybe 5 years, got
Yeah.
their feet wet, temporary situation, and ready to make the, the commitment to something as a move up. But yeah,
And have
Definitely.
you found that having, working your social and kind of putting out like you're doing as far as the content, having the website, your newsletter and everything else is helping that? Because I think, 10, 15 years ago where people are just building for people in their town, local areas where you don't have this portfolio that's so easy to engage customers from all over the place. Like, how much has your social and your marketing tactics played a role in kind of supplementing your business model at this point?
Yeah, it's huge for us. I mean, I was looking at our analytics the other day, and 60% of our website traffic is coming to us on a mobile device, for one thing. So that's a big shift in what it was even 5 years ago. And then of that traffic, 60% is coming directly from social media platforms. So, I mean, that shows me that what time we're putting into those platforms is paying off for us finally. I mean, there's certainly a lot of years spent just like consistently plugging along and not seeing a great deal of growth. I think it took us like 6 years to get to our first 10,000 followers on social media, and it took 6 months to get to the next 10,000, to 20. So certainly Instagram rewards you once you kind of meet certain thresholds, right? And then you kind of can continue. And I do still see that because we have focused on consistency and always sharing our own work and kind of sharing things that are very on brand for like the kind of projects we want to produce rather than showing just like every single thing that we're involved in, that kind of pinpoint approach has attracted the kind of work that we're wanting to do. And it's just allowed us to like grow organically and have a client or a follower base that is a lot more loyal. And so I feel like as much as we see engagement levels fluctuate with Instagram and other platforms, like our growth has remained steady and organic, and that just serves our brand for sure.
Yeah, and I think too for us, just during these last, I don't know, I would say these last 6 years have been pretty pivotal because where you build a house, I feel like our brand and what Emily has done, and I'm just the pusher of her talent, whatever, and I'm more of a small business entrepreneur type anyway, and what she's done, it really is parallel to creating these pieces of art. Like, you guys know that the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into these things, and you sell it, and then and there's no residual revenue. It's just done, and I felt like when the phone kept ringing and I couldn't build them a house, what could I offer them was where our business diversified in so many ways that I didn't really anticipate to begin with, but I knew that I needed to capture it. And it actually was a strain in our discussions because we're like, why would you sell your paint color for $10? And I'm like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
What's the value of somebody's time to negotiate social media and go down the rabbit hole of Google and really know what the credibility of a source is to get a stinking paint color from Sherwin-Williams? I need that code, and I'll pay you whatever you want. And, those kinds of conversations. And I thought, I've seen how many sleepless nights went into this project. Why is it just at the closing table we cash out at a normal rate, as a builder, where there's people trying to take that will and replicate it, and they just need to know where to find the information. So these last 6 years have been really cool to be able to really diversify our product offering, but also be very helpful in the design world. And so we're not just building homes. I think we're building these jewelry boxes that there's components that people are trying to replicate in their own worlds. Mm-hmm. And it's fun for us to be able to get these tags of people. I mean, we were in our builder group, we were in Dallas, Texas, drove by the exact same house. They bought our plan. And so we're driving by in the shuttle bus and like, wow, there's one of our homes. I mean, it's so cool. And then they tag us on social and we see these products all over the country. So it's been really cool to be able to see all these other ancillary opportunities where we thought we were just being creative and unique on an idea, so it's
Dan,
been fun.
were you bought in right when and maybe I'm making the assumption here, Emily, that you kind of brought this to the table because you were running social and getting all this feedback, but
No, if anyone, Dan is the one that first proposed doing the digital products, and I kind of fought it because that, from a design perspective, it's like you hold those sources close to your chest, right? Like nobody wants to share anything, and it was so new on social, and you were constantly being asked. It was like I can't tell you what I mean, but then like it after a while, you kind of go, yeah, like I can give away a paint color, and that doesn't like lessen what I can do as a designer. Like that paint color is not the design, it's everything else that has gone into making that space. So that's an easy way, if that brings me, as long as it's mutually beneficial. And that's kind of like I had to make that shift mentally when Dan first proposed the idea. It was like for one thing, like any competing builder can now have access to my design if they spend this money, and then they could build the exact same house right next to us, and they have before. And so that was like something you have to get all right with. Like if you're going to put that out there, we kind of said, I'm okay with it because I'm on to the next thing. Like that's what I did then, and great if it continues to make me money, but it's not going to be like where I peak and where like I can't be so holding on with a tight fist to this kind of information like it's super secret.
Right, and that's what I think
nuclear codes.
That's what I don't think people give enough credit to and thought, in the sense like when you're giving this stuff away, I mean, you should be trying to make the industry better, but also it should be pushing you to be better. Where it's like, that's the way we've always looked at sharing everything that we do. People are like, man, you're literally walking us through step by step on how you're doing something. And we're doing it live, like meaning like the video that uploads tomorrow or today is the video that we recorded yesterday. Yeah. But it's always making us innovate and be better and look at something in a different way.
The whole industry elevates. Yeah.
And if someone, you're damn right. Like if someone builds something right next to me or takes my detail and puts it up on social, I'm like, all right, that fire's burning. We gotta, now.
Right, but it's never quite the same thing, right? It's not. They can never quite replicate what you can do. So I feel like I really had to like gain a understanding of that at a deeper level. Like it's okay. Like I'm all right with the.
But also, could you imagine just straight up ripping somebody off like that and being like, "Yeah, this is cool. Like, I'm all right with this." Like, I can't imagine.
We literally have this house that we built a couple years ago that happened. Yeah, we built this very New England coastal style house, and then literally right next door to them, we saw it go up into framing, and my client was like, "Wow, this looks a lot like our house." And like they just put it on the market, their neighbor, like they finished it, they probably lived in it a couple months, and now they see like what the values have done, so they're putting it on the market. So we were looking at the MLS photos, and it was like you could tell they had been through our virtual tour and looked at everything, and like light fixtures were the same, but it was like, oh my gosh, it was just enough different that it was like badly, like a bad copy of that, and it was very obvious. But I thought, man, that's so ballsy to like for that other builder to build that literally right next door. Like at least take it down the street a few so that you're not you're
What's
not
the
so
saying?
Duplication
Duplication is the best compliment, or is it ripping
Imitation
off is the
is-
best compliment?
Yeah, form of flattery.
Form of
You're
flattery.
ripping off. Yeah.
And it's funny. Like I've had, I can't, and Tyler and I always text about it, but I've had probably a half a dozen people take my brand and rip it off and reuse the brand in their own, in their own wording or their own logo. And some people that are, I'm talking within the same city as me. And and I'm like, actually a lot of them are local, oddly enough. And I'm just like, that's fine. And like at first it was like it bothered me, and I actually shared it with my Drew Riley from Slash because he helped me create the brand, and he got pissed off at first too. And I'm like, you know what, man? Like, the majority of people that know them probably know me, and
Yeah,
they're just looking
and
at
they
them
see
like,
that
did you,
they see
yeah,
it.
like, did you copy Nick? Like, and it just, and at that point, I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna feel bad for you because like you just had
Yeah.
this, like, whatever,
Well,
you know.
and that's our attempt at creating a buck about this, because we were getting these feedback like, hey, they're using your idea here or whatever, or this looks like a Clark and Company house, and it's like, okay, I don't have enough
Great, well,
time in my day
pay us for
to
it
worry
then.
about that. So
Yeah.
why not earn $1 from it?
Yeah.
So we
Right,
put it out there,
exactly.
and now people were legitimately buying it, and then there were still people copying it, but I felt better about it.
Yeah.
So it was just a way to, I think, solve a solution, but also just move on
Yeah,
and
I mean
benefit.
it's just such a weird time, right? Like design, like you can't copyright design work like you can copyright a photo or a piece of art or a song, it's like I mean, we've had instances where we'll all of a sudden get like all these calls from Wisconsin, like, I see you have this home on the MLS and I'm interested in it because someone has taken our photos directly off our website and put it on an MLS listing in Michigan or wherever, and they haven't even bothered to crop out our logo. So like all of that business is coming to us and saying, I'm totally down to build this house here in Michigan. And we're going, like, I could spend all my day trying to fight that realtor, but like,
I'd rather
I
spend
don't
my day
even-
looking for a super in Michigan and just go build
I'm
a house.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's
like,
just
we're on our
nuts. And
way.
I even had this, like, one time I was sourcing tile in a showroom, and I turned the tile board over, and I'm like the photos of the house that they're using the tile are my house. Like, they had taken our photo and digitally rendered it, and then like took out the wood floor and put in their tile in that photo. And it was like,
What?
like, I don't even, like, how do you even I'm like, I'm flattered, I guess, like, but like it's kind of a crazy wild west with all of the digital capabilities out there. So I feel like I just don't devote a whole lot of energy
You
to
can't.
that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm on to the next thing. I'm doing
Right.
what I need to do, and doing what I love, and designing and doing something new. And I feel like as long as we keep doing that, like, that's where I find the most fulfillment. And karma, that'll take care of what all of
Sure.
those other folks, right?
So when you guys have like a customer who comes to you and wants to build a custom, are you helping them find the lot as well?
Yes and no. We do both, actually. We buy land. And so when we talk about our concept homes,
Yeah,
that's on land that we own.
sure.
So that's one of the things too that we've really done well at, is just buying exceptional land and building concept homes. So people will come through the door and we'll say, well, we're designing this house. Are you interested? We'll let you know when we have more information, but we have design control, and we put it out there. And so when we have those interested people at different phases of construction, we can do a design presentation and show them the mood boards and everything that's going into the home, and as opposed to taking a list of orders and selections from a client. So that's one of the other areas of our business that we're a little bit unique, where we actually don't let clients go touch and feel and choose everything, go to showrooms. We curate a look for their style based on our brand, and we propose that to them in a all-inclusive package and curate that with the pricing and everything. So it's just turnkey. And now what we're doing is putting that into furnishing. So you have a literal turnkey house with full furnishings, and they're not cheap, but it's kind of getting to the buyer's head again. They're seeing all this imagery on the web and social media, and they're saying, I know I love that. I don't know how to get there. There's way too much involved in getting there, and we're trying to eliminate a lot of the minutia. And again, we kind of give the analogy, like, if you knew what was in your sausage that you're about to eat, you wouldn't eat it. So we take all the sausage making out of that and present a nice product that they love, and it's very emotional. But we all know that the home building process right now is as tough as it's ever been. So I think our biggest obstacle right now is just the money part. Everything's more expensive.
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge shift for our business. I mean, initially, we certainly weren't coming at our client list with, like, like the design firm mentality. It was like, yeah, I'll bring you to all of the showrooms all around town. You can see everything up and touch everything, and then end up with this house that has all these weird elements because they've fallen in love with very disparate design things. I just got to the point personally where I was like,
rooster I got on vacation 6
yeah,
years ago.
I was like, why are we doing this? Like, I'm the professional in the room here. Like, why are we not, like, we're the ones with the industry experience. Why are we not guiding them a little bit better? And so, you know, we really took the time to revamp the process as far as how we work with clients and how involved we let them be in the process, even when it's a custom home. I feel like that was for us to design, or to define, I think is the word, because the word custom means a different thing to a lot of different people, right? Like, for some people, that was like, well, I'm the designer and I get to do it and you take the order. And that's not the brand that we were trying to put forward, and it wasn't going to benefit us from a portfolio standpoint for sure. So we revamped that. We started curating. You know, we talked about the kind of language that we used with our clients and how we would present, you know, from initial budget and I say investment discussions to their finished specifications package and design presentation. That really switched into a much more high-end elevated experience. And I think it was a huge difference in overall satisfaction for our clients as well, because it's so overwhelming to like go to a tile and a flooring and a lighting showroom like within the space of a week, and like they're seeing thousands and thousands of things and feeling overwhelmed and pressure, and like we just have to make all these decisions because we're only in town for these few days. And it went from that to like, come to our office and here's like the charcuterie board and drinks, and you know, we present and we have all of the trays of everything. So it felt like you're hiring us because we're good at what we do, and you obviously trust us because of what you've seen us produce in the past. So let's take out that stress for you and really elevate the experience overall. And that was a huge turning point for us as a brand.
I think the frustration, those pain points we all know about in the build process, we just felt like, I don't enjoy this part of my job, and how can I get rid of it? And hopefully it's a win-win for the client too. And so that's what we've set ourselves apart by doing those things that are very traditional in the building world. And at a risk. We really didn't know how well this was going to be, and so far so good, but I feel like the building industry is just a little bit archaic in its processes still, and this was an opportunity to turn it upside down a little bit and just really tell the client, we've seen your Pinterest boards, we've seen your house account, whatever. I mean, we get a flair. You're coming to us obviously because we have a similar aesthetic, so you know, let us take it from here, type of thing. And then, you know, they tweak a couple things, but for the most part, we're pretty spot on, and it's so therapeutic for everybody. And they're just walking out of this meeting, just like, I've been heard.
Yeah.
You know me, you get me, and I trust you. And the trust has been the biggest key, where they can just turn it over. And then, you know, right now it almost seems like we'll see in 2 years, but you know, it
like,
takes a while to
having
get to the
said
end.
that, like now when clients come in, I'm saying to them, like, I'll show you beautiful, you know, imagery and mood boards and things, but I need you to not fall in love with any individual item. Like, this is a mood and this is the direction that we're heading. But by the time it's time for install, like, I cannot guarantee any of these things are still going to be there. What I can guarantee is that you're going to love it, and it's going to have this, like, it'll be, the pretty part is easy. There's a million different things I can choose to make this a beautiful home, but the process of getting there has changed exponentially for our industry, and I have to have that ability to pivot quickly and make decisions on my own end without involving you in every single step, because sometimes by the time I communicate to you that this is out of stock and you've taken 3 days to ask your aunt and uncle and everybody else if you still like this, and then come back to me with the yes, and it's gone already, and we're back to that cyclical process again. So that's kind of the expectation that we're setting with people now, is like, I can do pretty all day long. I guarantee you it's going to be great. That's about as far as that's going to go with the guarantees at this point. Like, show me your money and sign here, and then we'll deliver something beautiful when it's done.
So it's almost as if you guys are pre-selling a spec for these homes to a customer, and you said a lot of times you're acquiring the land. How, you had kind of mentioned you're taking risk. How are you guys mitigating that risk, especially with the market right now? Because I'm sure that lots are probably inflated, the cost of construction, and then you're signing somebody up for 2 years worth of construction, to understand where the market's going to be at that point. How are you guys kind of mitigating that risk?
We obviously take on just, a certain amount of risk at a certain time.
Sure.
So there's that. It's not like like Emily said, we're still a boutique builder. We're not just throwing it all out there. And to be honest, it is a risk, and we're still, for me, just as the guy behind the curtain, I just feel like whatever she does, it always works out, and it has. So that's an element of trust too. I think kind of the side note of the risk thing is we diversify. So our product offering is it kind of buoys me up from a small business owner perspective. We're designing commercial spaces. We're doing an event center. We're doing just unique opportunities that are not just set in the home building. Obviously the digital designs. So we're just kind of putting it out there. My experience in the housing crash of whatever year it was you put your eggs in all your eggs in one basket, and you're hurting. And we went through that. So I think what we're doing here is seeing a little bit of a bigger picture and the diversification. But we are doing some high end, you can call them spec homes. But what your observation is correct. We're trying to pre-sell into them before we actually get all the bills in.
Yeah.
So we have the imagery there, the structure is there. It's usually at about sheetrock where we start mentioning it to the public and putting it out there.
And luckily we were able to buy that land, at rates that were much more favorable at the time.
Yeah,
so
and
we're working on inventory that's 2 years old.
I guess that was kind of also
land.
what I'm thinking. It's like, right now, if you guys were to acquire a lot, it's going to be inflated. And then, in 2 years from now or a year from now, where you decide to turn that lot over, I would hope, the market's going to at least remain stable. But like you said, how much longer can the market in Boise continue to grow? Like, at what point are everyone just going to throw up their hands and be like, all right, like, enough is enough. This is, and there's a risk obviously with that. And it's not a knock saying that it's a spec build. I'm trying to wrap my head around what you guys are doing, because it's not a true custom and it's not a true spec. You guys are kind of like in between, where it's custom, but you're not putting your hands in this custom. Like, we'll build this custom for you, but we don't necessarily want you to be making all the selections.
Right.
And also, when you sell, I was reading a little bit about when builders are selling, and typically they were pre-selling a lot sooner, and builders are tending to hold off now and waiting to pre-sell until later, because they can get so much. If they wait 3 more months and prices go up, they can make that much more money on that same house.
Yeah, and I think that market in our area probably is less now. We've had those situations in the last 12 months where the house, we waited and benefited from that. So yeah, we're definitely keeping our ear to the ground on the market conditions.
And being very conservative about land acquisition at the current rates.
You guys know the prices of things fluctuated so much. I think we're starting to see a little bit of the supply and demand issues resolve itself. So you couldn't price something because you didn't know what your final costs were going to be. So yeah, it pushed out when you could actually market it with a legitimate price. We're starting to see that subside a little bit. So yeah, we're just trying to be nimble. Just hear the market.
I think this is something that we discuss a lot in our 20 clubs is like, once you've met that threshold of what you need to do to meet your costs and your overhead and everything, like that's when your price goes up, right? So like when you're not hurting for business, you raise your prices, and we've just been very conservative about what new projects that we're taking on at this time. And then like Dan kind of alluded to, is we're also diversifying. We're building a new like a mixed use office space for our company to serve as a showroom and office, and then it will also be able to be rented out as a venue, and like for community events that will actually produce some things in-house. So that kind of gives us another like area to kind of support Clark & Co. If things kind of take a turn for a little bit. It gives us another area that we can focus on. And we've, with the team that we have put together, they've got skills in lots of different areas, so we can repurpose and use people in different capacities as well.
Have you guys put anything into place to kind of account for the difficulties with land acquisition right now? Like, how are you guys managing that? I'm sure there's far less lots. What are you doing to kind of get those ideal lots that you want, other than just being like, hey, we'll pay you more money?
Yeah, because I think, Dan, you said earlier like that you've been really strategic with your purchases and have been able to purchase really well. And I'm curious as to what you were doing and to what Tyler just asked, what you're doing now, like to make sure that you're purchasing at, you're purchasing a good lot that is going to, be turned into something that is saleable.
Yeah. There's a couple factors here in our town. Typically you get subdivisions formed by a developer who buys the dirt and entitles it, and they will put a marketing team together, and that marketing team will put builders together, and it becomes a builder team. So our brand has kind of evolved away from that. A builder team is a concept where maybe you guys are more familiar with your national builders, where they pick a floor plan, A, B, or C package, that kind of format. It could be custom a little bit, but typically these clients are coming into a community and you get 4 choices. We're not that person. So Boise's been huge on that. And so trying to find the lots that don't require that have been tricky. So when those opportunities come on, and it fits all the boxes of our brand and the type of community, the location, those kinds of things, the size of the land, then we go after those pretty heavy. Having said that, the market's changing. It has been changing the last couple of years substantially, mostly in the positive, but now we're starting to see a softening, and that's where I say I don't buy high. So we're kind of on the back burner a little bit right now, and if clients have lots, which that happens, we're definitely, we do that. But as far as our portfolio as land investments, we've had a lot of national builders come to town. We had one significant one in the last probably 5 years, and they kind of come and go. And now I think we've got probably 6 or 7. And so this is huge for Boise, and they're swallowing up the dirt like crazy, or have been. So it's definitely an evolution right now in our market. Definitely, I think the next 12 months are going to be very telling to see what happens. But
it also has been to your strength. I mean, because you grew up in this area, and people, you have relationships with people, and in your capacity as a real estate broker, like that's given you opportunity to purchase land and get involved with projects that maybe are available before the general public knows about it as well.
Very different right now, just because these nationals came up and they didn't care what you charged for the land. They just bought it.
I mean, that's the problem, right? Like, you would think that
pushes us out.
Being from there and having a network of people, that those people selling that land or those properties would want to keep that within like the smaller local group of people. But then you have a national builder come in with investors and pockets that are far deeper than that, and it's like, well, we'd like to keep it small and local, but they're going to pay us this much more. And can you really blame those people? You know, if it's not people
Right.
with massive amounts of money in the first place, and then it becomes a business
Right.
decision,
Right.
which
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
tough. And like, you'd like to see that land not go to these national builders, but you have to understand why it is that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dan, what's your general feedback on these national builders? And you said there was one that came and went, and now there's 6 or 7 of them. But do you have an opinion on how they operate, what they're doing for Boise? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it a little bit of both?
Well, I think we saw the demand peak, and really, to be honest, I think the amount of building that was happening in our valley over the last 5-6 years was not sufficient, and so when it did hit, it hit hard, and we needed supply. You saw the absorption rates were days, and that's not healthy. And so, of course, the prices are skyrocketing. People are writing those love letters. We got one of those for one of our houses. This little girl wrote this note drawing her bedroom in a crayon. And you're just like,
please
oh my gosh, I
sell
will
to
give you
us.
your house. Yeah,
I didn't see
just
that
pulled at
letter.
our
What letter?
heartstrings.
Throw it away, burn it.
So, yeah, it's amazing what we'll concede when we have some emotion involved in these business decisions. But,
Meanwhile, it's like one of the parents drawing with crown. Like, does it look like a little kid's handwriting?
Yeah.
No, write it with your left
Is
hand.
it sloppy enough? Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's positive just because I think they filled a gap, and there's no harm in that.
That's
but
not our client anyways.
It
so.
really isn't. But at the same time, like what you're seeing is that the local guys are getting pushed aside, and we've seen them get bought out, which is great, I guess. So it's this evolution of our industry in our town that we haven't seen before, and it's just the way it is. But I haven't seen anything unhealthy necessarily, but I hear people say, you know, when things don't work out, they just blow and go, or the quality, or they just ditch your town. They're just in it for the money. But I don't know that we're seeing that. I think it's just disgruntled people that are, you know, warning us.
I definitely hear the quality issue.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I also see them as some of the industry leaders where it's like they're implementing new technology faster because they can do it at scale. And, you know, one example comes to mind is aerobarrier. And it's, you know, the atomized, basically air tightness. And it was designed to basically to allow you to get to an air tightness level really quickly by atomizing, you know, I forget what it's called. It's basically like atomizing caulking and filling the voids that are in construction. Yeah. And they were aerobarrier was going after these national builders because they were still using maybe fiberglass or something like that, but they were struggling to meet their air tightness. So here's a technology that is actually a really great technology that can help a lot of builders, and by a national builder using it, it makes it, you know, it puts it in the marketplace for us as an option and gets it across the country. The blow and go mentality, that's what I get concerned with. Yeah. In, you know, in the sense of like, all right, yeah, they come in 6 or 7 of these guys, they swallow up and you know, buy out a few of you guys, right? A few of the builders local. I think that's great, because I do think that there's too many owner operators in this industry. I think there's too many people doing it alone, and they're doing it because they weren't able to find the right business to work for, and they think they can make more money, and a lot of them can't run a business, right? We all agree on that. And here's a national business that has millions of dollars, that knows how to run a business, is probably very profitable, and absorbs these companies. That's great until they leave. And it's like, and you know, and that doesn't always happen, right? Like Boise might be the hottest market for the rest of our life. Who knows? But the point
well,
is,
I mean, that was our opportunity in 2008. Was they all left, and that was when I guess it was 2011. That was when we were coming up, and so for us, it was a great time to open a business because there was a need. There wasn't quite the same amount of people that were in the game anymore.
I get concerned, Nick, even just being a steward for the land, or a steward for the community, where I think that working in older communities now and having stake in that community and wanting to do the best for those people and those homes, you get these people who are bigger corporations who are very business minded, and I don't think that that's necessarily their intention, and that's what kind of gets me.
Yeah, and that's and that's, I've talked to other builders and about traveling builders that enter other markets, and they're doing it for one home, and it's something that actually is really that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in building around the whole world, and I want to build crazy homes around the whole world. And I've talked to one builder where he's like, no, that's that's a terrible idea. You come in, you're taking advantage. Like, that should be the local builder's project. And in the moment, I was like, man, he's right. But then I thought about it. I'm like, but they weren't hiring me because they didn't trust the other builder. They hired me. They wanted me to build it because they want to work with me, and it just happens to be in a different market. And I'm going through this right now with 2 projects that we're being considered for that are very much outside of our market. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I certainly don't want to be the guy that comes into a town that I've never been a part of and be the guy that's ruining the town, or the a-hole that's like, hey, why is he taking work away from us? But I have to believe in my mind that I'm not taking work away from anyone. I'm being hired to help manage a project, and it's not like I'm going to fly 50 people down to a different state to work on it. It's like, no, I want to enter that community and introduce myself as as a gentleman and say, hey, listen, I'm being hired to build this home, and I'm looking to work with the best in your community.
Yeah. I feel like we're trying to dip a toe into that opportunity. It kind of has sprung from our plan sets and digital downloads, but we are starting to work with other builders outside of our market. And I think also like project management software like Buildertrend and CoConstruct have really helped this as well, like where we can really build a template for somebody else and be able to then share that whole job with the other builder for a certain fee, and then like a consultancy on top of that. And I feel like that's another way again for us to scale what we're already doing well here, is we've nailed down our process. We know what the historical numbers are for this project. I mean, obviously that's not going to translate 100% to somebody else's area, but it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where you're able to then kind of put your design out there, and then also utilize the local talent in a little bit of a better way. I think there's builders like friends of ours like Steve Teak that I know you've talked about that's doing that, or Fox Group that does a little bit of that as well. And I love it. I think that's another way. I mean, like when your audience, especially on social, is like so varied and so wide, that you're able to have that investment in your brand, and then like be able to offer your services outside of your general area. It's exciting to both of us. I mean, we love to travel, so like,
right. And
if you want us to build you a home on Turks and Caicos, we're ready. Let's do it.
But that's it. And you take this owner rep role almost, where you're not, at least in the way I look at it, is I'm not necessarily looking to transfer my whole business and take everything with me and then go transplant it to another state or another country. It's we're spending an enormous amount of time building the process in which we build a home, and ultimately someone appreciates the way we build a home. Someone appreciates the way we approach the building process, the communication process, the project management process. And like you said, especially with software, it's like now you have the opportunity to kind of give the template for that. And that's the way we look at it, is that we want to work with the local people, but the particular client wants us as being kind of that eyes and ears, the owner rep, the construction manager, however you want to phrase it. And here, and this is just ideally putting someone in a position that maybe they are a smaller owner operator in a different state that doesn't have the capacity to manage and communicate a project of that stature, but we do. And that and you know, someone hiring you on your website, seeing your designs, it's like, hey, you know, like the guy that built the house next door to you. It's like he paid the $500 for the plans. He could have also probably paid you a consulting fee, and that house would have came out perfect, and he still would have made money on
True.
it. It's like, hey, listen, you know, I happen to live
But he
right
got
down
it
the
all
street.
for $500.
Yeah, but did he? Like, it's not the same product.
In his mind, his
so
customers' mind,
he
they're
sold
probably
it.
like,
He
yeah.
made money.
But that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like
Yeah.
there's the opportunity cost where, you know, I've had those conversations even locally where it's like, hey, well, can I pay you to oversee my build? And I actually declined one 2 years ago, and I always thought about it because I drive by the house and it just didn't come out well. And I'm like, all right, like those would have been things that I would have flagged immediately and said, hey, we need to pay attention to these details. And ultimately, that's what I'm selling is, you know, I'm a detail oriented guy. My team is super detail oriented. Like, we are spending a lot of time understanding the details and being intentional. So, you know, if there's definitely a value to what we do. And, you know, and it doesn't mean that we have to be the builder. It doesn't mean that we have to physically be on the site.
It's like this digital franchise opportunity, really, right? Like,
and this is bringing like complete full circle to what I had said in the beginning. It's there's so many other opportunities, and you know, this industry is loaded with talent. Yeah. And you know, Dan, you said it earlier, where it's like everything stops when you finish the house. It's like there's, you know, that's it. You know, we collect and the house is done. And it's like, why? Why can't we continue to benefit from that? And you know, and yes, I think social media in general, I have my thoughts on this whole crypto and NFT thing. It's like there's so many opportunities that are related to what is going on in the world today that, you know, I think Dan, you said it, is that the construction is archaic. And we're very, very slow to adapt, and that's why, you know, kudos to you guys for jumping on the opportunity. Morgan, from Construction to Style, I chatted with her for a long time about affiliate links and things like that, and it's just why there's no. I was explaining this to my wife the other day. There's no negative side of using the affiliate link at all, and I was explaining, like, if you promote, hey, here's the lamp that I used on my project, and I go buy it from Amazon through your link, the only difference from me clicking your link and searching for it on Amazon is you get a little kickback on it, as you should. You were the one that told me, hey, here's the lamp, you put the work in.
I mean, there's some balance there too, right? Like, because those with affiliates, I think what stopped us from like jumping in with both feet is it's pretty time consuming. Like, we did a whole house that we fully furnished with all retail sources, so that we could then put together a whole furnishings list for every single room in the house and sell that as a package. And what I found was, like, all of those products are so seasonal, right? Like, they're only available for a certain period of time. So that digital download product is like obsolete within a few months, whereas like some of our like our design specifications packages that are like lighting and tile and that kind of stuff has a little bit longer of a time period where those things are still available. So it's kind of a balance. Like, I feel like you do better with affiliates if you've taken the time first to build your brand 100%. And the size of your audience, so that you can throw a couple of those links in your stories and then you recoup that investment immediately. Whereas like a digital product that's going to be it'll never be evergreen, right? So you'd be like constantly revisiting and updating that. So it's kind of like that, testing those waters and what is going to work for our industry. But I feel like it's people that have the ability to think about those types of things and like outside of the box, like, how can we monetize this in a way that like or that we have the capacity to do right now, or is it beneficial for us to take on a new employee that can focus on this 100%, and then what's going to be the return on that employee's cost? So I think those are the kinds of things that Dan and I well, Dan especially like excels at like that entrepreneurial thinking. You know, like I've met somebody that's great and they have all of these superpowers, you know, and like, how can we make that work for our business? I have no idea what that looks like yet, but let's bring this person on to our team and then like figure out how we can monetize the skills that person possesses.
So Dan has that mindset, and he has, you know, the construction, the land development background, the real estate background. You said that you were a music major.
Yeah.
So what's that
my
path
education
look
is in
like from music major to now? I'm trying to find the correlation there. Dan seems to be pretty straightforward. Yours, I'm not seeing like a
no.
distinct...
I mean, like he's like a sales and marketing person. Like that's his educational background. Neither of us kind of came at this industry from a linear path, right? Like like I said, I would sit down at lunch at high school and watch This Old House. I was pouring through design magazines. I was, you know, Martha Stewart's from Maine. She was a hero of mine growing up. So I always feel like I had a passion for design. But when it came time to go to college, I was able to take one class in design, and then they got rid of that major entirely. And I was like, well, that's all right. I'm cool with like music is like my jam as well. So like I'll study this, and I didn't really think a whole lot more about it until Dan kind of took a detour in his career and ended up working for another builder here locally in construction. He was really falling in love with it. So by the time it came time for us to start our business on our own, it was kind of a natural step for me to kind of come in and like I've got tons of ideas on what this thing could look like. Like I'll join ship there, and then we just kind of grew from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that a lot of people who get into our business and our industry, it's not like they decided to kind of jump in and start doing that, or that was, you know, they were a little kid and they're like, I want to get into the construction industry. A lot of times we do have the transplants, for lack of a better term, and it's interesting to see you coming from a music background or, you know, a music major in college. Not that means anything, but then winding up doing what you're doing now.
I think it comes down to just like creative thinking too. I mean, like I was a dancer, I was a singer, I thought I was going to be a Broadway star living in Maine.
Same.
And
Same.
I could tell that
Maine.
About you.
New Jersey Broadway star.
I thought I was going to do Dodge commercials talking about the Ram
like
25.
I don't know why I didn't consider
like
that
Matthew
as like
McConaughey
a possible
today.
career path, but you know, you really do. Somebody should
all right.
capitalize upon that.
No,
Just say the phrase just once for us. All right.
All right.
It's true
Yeah.
though, but
See?
I think that's life. I think that solving problems and creative thinking makes somebody successful, and it doesn't matter if you're in construction, you know, you have a dance background, you know, you're in business. I think that as human beings, creative thinking and being problem solvers is kind of what makes us excel.
It's curiosity. Like I went to a conference just this last September in New York. It was called the Future of Home Conference, and it was put on by Business of Home magazine. And they talked a lot about what vocations in the future are going to be the most successful. And interesting that you kind of touched upon like NFT and metaverse. Like that was one of their big topics of conversation. What does the real estate look like in the future? What do homes look like in the future? Are we designing products for people to enjoy virtually in their homes? And yeah, one of the main points that they were able to make was that those people that have the ability to think and problem solve and design and see things, have the vision for like the 3D, are the people that are going to be like the big winners in the future. So I feel like that's a huge shift that we're seeing already.
I remember going to a builder conference, and they did a slideshow, and they said, this is the evolution of some things in our world. And they put a picture of like the Model A, Ford Model A. And then they said, and here's the car today. And it was this beautiful truck or whatever. And then there was a picture of I don't know, a travel agent, and a typewriter. And then the picture today, it was like the Travelocity logo. And then they put the picture of the builder, and it was a dog in the back of a truck and a guy with calloused hands and a hammer and a tool belt. And they put the same picture up today. And it was just, you're thinking, yeah, our industry, there's something to be said about the craftsman. And that thing is, that's an art that is fading, unfortunately. But the industry itself, the business side of that, is something that hasn't really, I don't think, evolved. And so if you look at, like, I didn't take construction management as my degree. And if you look at, we're friends with Co-Construct's originator, Donnie Wyatt, and he was not in construction. And Builder Trends originator, Dan Houghton, who we were with a couple weeks ago, and he's not in construction. And these innovators, they're trying to rethink our industry and bring these processes and these innovations to make it better. And so to your point, Nick, where you said, I think it's healthy that these small guys are getting bought up, because they're trying to do something that maybe they're not. That small business ownership, being a business owner, is a whole different thing, but they're great craftsmen.
Right.
And I feel like what we are providing is tools and processes, and for us to be able to say, hey, here's the house, your client loves it, and here's every step of the way to get there. And so you do not have to reinvent that wheel. I keep saying that, reinventing the wheel, but honestly, I think our industry is so much of, how do I get from here to here? I know what I want, and I don't know how to get there. And it's a nightmare for everybody involved. And it's lawsuits, it's frustrated clients, it's the stereotypical contractor stories that everybody knows. And in my mind, my goal in life is to reverse that stereotype for contractors, that it is a professional industry, and we need to take more credit than people are giving to us. But it kind of goes back to our industry and our processes that are truly so old-fashioned.
Right.
So,
and there's such a difference between craftsmanship and business ownership, and I think there's too many conversations having that, or saying that they're one and the same. And we had this conversation with the Essential Craftsman, a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about craftsmanship, and I had asked him, like, what's your thought on innovation around craftsmanship? He talked about the logging industry, how he grew up in the logging industry, and they were running down the hill with chains and chainsaws, and now it's a machine that walks up, grabs a tree, and slices it up into 8-foot sections in about 37 seconds. And there's so much pushback on the home building industry. It's like, robots are going to take over our job. Like, you're ruining craftsmanship. Like, you're ruining my job by using CNCs instead of just cutting it on a table saw. It's like, no, we're trying to preserve the craftsmanship and give the opportunity where the human interaction in building is the romantic side, is the creative side. You're not going to have a robot have that creativity. A robot can put part A to part B and B to C and et cetera, take the monotony out of it. But we need to, as an industry, we should be supporting the innovation and capitalizing on the opportunity to collaborate on the business side, on the structure, the processes. Those are the things that we are, as an industry, we are too hard-headed and too stubborn to accept the fact that we're not all good businessmen.
I was listening to a podcast, and it was about how we kind of formulate habits, bad habits, good habits, and that a lot of times they're goal driven. They're kind of created by our goals rather than our processes. And oftentimes, what makes somebody a winner or a loser, it's not their goals. They have the same goal in mind. The person who took first place had the same goal as the person who took fifth place, and that the difference lies within their processes, their training, their diet. And if we really want to make those changes with our industry, with your business, you have to focus on your systems and your processes rather than your goal. Your goal is almost irrelevant, because once you've reached your goal, you have another goal beyond that, which I thought was interesting. And I think that it kind of correlates with this as well. And it's like, if we truly want to make changes within our business, within our life, a lot of people have the same goals as us. It's what our systems look like to get us to those goals, where we need to focus our energy.
Yeah, and I think, just with how how many opportunities we have to connect with other people in the industry, education wise. I mean, like with podcasts like yours and Facebook groups and, education sessions at like builder shows and, 20 clubs, like those kinds of things didn't exist for us. Well, they weren't a part of our business like 10 years ago when we were getting started. And those have made a huge difference. I know that just for me personally, as a designer, like when I was able to connect with people, other designers on Facebook groups and be able to ask questions like, how are you doing this? And how have you navigated this issue with this client? Like that I experienced like an exponential growth as a business, like in the business portion of being a designer, just feeling like all of a sudden I wasn't alone anymore, like trying to forge this one path and discover everything for the first time, where it was like all of these like closely guarded secrets that people would never talk about. Like all of a sudden people felt free and open to talk about things because we were in non-competing markets with each other. And it just was like this renaissance, I feel like, of sharing ideas. And as a result, I feel like from my design perspective, like our industry just keeps rising. And I feel like it's a tremendously exciting time to be in design and construction for those reasons.
Yeah, it's insane, that little bit of reassurance or just kind of speaking with somebody and having that network. I think even with myself, I realized I'm not the only one making all this shit up. Like everyone else is making a lot of it up as they go as well. It's like, all right, cool. Like even that little bit of reassurance where it's like, that person that you think looks like they have everything together and even, the tighty whities and everything. It's like, nah, they're making it up too. Like they don't know
right?
everything.
I mean, that's why I think like this is super valuable. You got to talk about it. Everything looks, like you're saying, a certain way. You want to portray it a certain way because you're building your brand, but it's also really important to be real and to be authentic and even like give your clients and your audience a glimpse of what that looks like, because I think ultimately other people invest in those, like in people being real and being vulnerable and sharing those things. So I feel like because of technology, our industry is able to make the changes needed to innovate that much easier.
I would agree with that. I think that, especially looking back at the last 5 years, our industry is definitely taking, collaborating over competing much more seriously. And from the innovation side, it's the same thing from like, passive house standard and more energy, energy conscious homes. We know everything is trending in that direction. And there's two schools of thought, and it's going to be the guys that are refusing to adapt, and they will ultimately be obsolete. And then you have the guys that are willing to adapt, and they're gonna charge forward. And the guys that want to grow their business, grow their brand, and build a good company, that they're gonna have a better podium to stand on. And and especially with how transparent social media actually is, it's pretty hard, especially when you put yourself out there to hide the bullshit, because there's going to be 100,000 people calling you out on it. And for me, it took a long time to appreciate that, but now it gives me the opportunity to really hold myself accountable and my team accountable, and I think that I'd like to think that is putting us as a business and us as a contributor to this industry in a position to make the industry better and more collaborative, and everyone, like you said, like actually being able to give back and work through problems and have really open and honest conversations about things, when otherwise we would be too afraid to do that because we think that he's got it all figured out. I'd be embarrassed to ask that question. Now it's the embarrassment is no longer.
So as we're kind of wrapping things up here, construction aside, you guys live in Boise. It's a crazy market, a really beautiful part of the country. I've never been to Idaho, but it actually randomly has always been on my list of places to visit. I had a friend in elementary school, Dave Campbell, who moved from my hometown to Idaho, and I was always like, who the heck moves to Idaho? And then like as I got older, I ride dirt bikes now. Like it just seems like a really amazing place to live. What do you guys do for fun, hobbies, anything, construction and business aside? Hopefully you guys don't have kids. I was going to say, oh, that ruins it. Didn't need to say no more. That's all right. You don't do anything.
We have 5 kids. Our oldest is graduating this Saturday, in fact. So like the age spread on our kids is 18 to age 8. So it's a very busy time of life for us, personally as well as professionally. So a lot of our free time is taken up shuttling kids from here to there and attending sporting events. But Dan does some tennis coaching on the side, and that's something that he's been able to do because of the people that we've put in place within our team. So he has opportunities to free up a little bit of his time that way.
We travel a lot. We leave Boise a lot.
Cool. I mean, you got to find something, right? Like I'm learning that at 36 now, that it's very hard to kind of get into like any sort of flow state or get out of your own head when you have the grind of a family and business. And sometimes like
you got to leave it behind and separate.
Yeah, like
well, in the same way that like you have an open space and then you need some closed spaces, like you also need to like physically get out of your area where you work so that you can I'm even for me as a mother, like so I can have my thoughts to myself. Totally. Like I'm not constantly thinking about who has eaten and slept and pooped and had.
That's what it's like. I'm not actually going to the bathroom. I'm just trying to get some alone time. But like, there's people who can get out of that get out or into that headspace without doing anything. I'm not that disciplined, so I actually have to do things. And like, if traveling is that what you need to be able to get out and kind of turn your mind off, then that's amazing.
Yeah, well, we actually we built a home for my mom and dad on our property that just finished last year. So they've retired now and they live with us, and that has opened up a huge opportunity for us to take a little bit more time to travel and do things because we have grandma and grandpa there on site with us. So highly recommend that as a strategy
I can send my
for
kids
business
there?
growth.
Is that what
I think it's a tax write-off. Tyler, Nick, we'd be happy to host you anytime you want to come to Boise.
I just want to send my
guest
kids.
Room ready to go. Dan's got a tennis court for you. Just the kids? No, he'll coach them for you, and then
my kids are 1, 3, and 5. I think. I think.
Well, I have babysitters for those kids.
All right.
Come and see us.
Nick, when you get out of diapers, it's life-changing. You'll get there.
Trust me.
It happens.
I understand that.
You're counting down the days on the calendar.
Yeah. Ken, my millwork partner, and I were chatting today, and he goes, "You guys gonna have a 4th?" I'm like, "No, absolutely. Like we're done."
After you have 3, it's all the same.
It is all the
same.
same.
Just embrace the chaos.
No, we
Nick.
totally embrace it. But my wife It's not up to me. Like she was like, "I want 5," and I was like,
"I don't know. I'm one of 5. It was a bit much." I don't think I'd recommend it. You guys are insane.
For a year and a half now, she's been telling me, "Hey, we're done. It's 3. We're done. Let's get out of diapers and enjoy it." And I'm like, "All right, I'm on board."
Yeah, it's a mental
Plus, we live
shift
in the city, so it's we have space for everyone right now, but not if we have another child. It's just but it's if I can, my wife has a rule that if we travel, it has to be on the ocean. So maybe I'll make it to Boise, but I don't know if she will.
Well, I'll tell you, you can tell your wife, like I am a coastal girl as well.
All right.
I fought it, but I am converted
to,
Idaho living.
Cool. Well, you guys were great.
I'd go for the beach.
You never grew up on the beach.
Yeah.
Just want what you can't have,
That's what I'm saying.
where you didn't have.
So it's only a plane right away.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for your time, guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys were awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. That
great.
was awesome.
It was a real treat for us to be talking to you today, and
appreciate you putting up the
hope we ended up
wall.
making some good points there and didn't just.
I'm just impressed. I don't know where you guys are that you didn't have 5 kids bashing down your door, but you can't be home. There's no way.
No, it's only 3. It's only 3:00 here, so most of them are still in school. So we're good
that'll
to
do
go.
it.
Very true. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Take care.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye.
I've been listening to a couple podcasts lately where they don't cut that from the end of it, where like they get done the podcast and guys like, all right, we did 3 hours, and then like the conversation of, you can hear them get up and stand up, but the audio is still being picked up. And it's so funny to hear the dialogue afterwards where it's like, I can't believe that was 3 hours. I didn't have anything to talk about. And like you hear him talking for a few seconds afterwards, and it's almost the best part of the podcast.
Dude, I can't say I know if Doug cuts that out or not, but he definitely doesn't need to.
Yeah.
I was listening I was listening to one the other day, and in the beginning, I actually, you know what, it was the Mr. Beast on Joe Rogan, which I don't know if you've listened to it. It's worth the listen. But when they start the podcast, Mr. Beast has the headphones on. He goes, "Whoa, I can hear myself," and Joe's like, "Yeah, I mean that's the point of having." He's like, "Why do I need to hear myself?" And I never knew the reason. And Rogan goes on to explain. He goes, "The reason that you hear yourself in your headphones actually helps prevent you from talking over someone else. So we all can hear what we're saying and what we're doing, and it prevents people from talking over."
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that makes sense.
I mean, it's definitely easier in studio as well when you are, on a phone call, or sometimes there's a lag, and a lot of times it's that thing where you're walking down a hallway and you you step left and that person steps right, and then you do it the same way, and you're like back and forth a couple times and just let's dance. I've just gotten to the point where I just continue to talk because I know that they're going to stop, and rather than go back and forth, I'm like, all right, I'll just keep going.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a giveaway to give. We have a giveaway to give away some swag. I'll get to that in a second. But next week we have Brenda Izin. I could be saying that wrong, but an architect out of Canada. And she wants to talk about her all-female firm and how their attention to detail makes them the best there is. And also talking about architecture in general, the design build model, all things architecture. So if you guys have something that you want to hear about, drop us a comment on Instagram. We'll try to incorporate that into next week's episode. America's hat.
Cap? What did we say it was?
I think it was Cap. Yeah. And then we have two. So we have Brian the Trim Dude from East Tennessee. East Tennessee Finish Carpentry. Always a thrill to start my week with folks who share the same love of the craft. I run a little finish carpentry business in East Tennessee and strive to deliver the best service I can. I get inspired by Nick and Tyler fighting the good fight. Makes doing the right thing feel a little bit less lonely. And I wish I could have caught up with Nick when he was in Nashville. I could go on and on, but this crown ain't hanging itself.
See?
And then we get...
dude, I was thinking in my head as you read that I want to live somewhere where you could use the geographic location and the state together, and it sounds so cool, like East Tennessee. Like, it just sounds sick. And then I was like, wait, people call it South Jersey, and it doesn't sound cool at all.
I think South Jersey sounds cool.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just Jersey in general, but it's like East Tennessee sounds like I feel like it should be in a song, and then I'm like South Jersey, and I'm dry heaving. It's bad.
It's funny. When people ask me where I live, I always say South Boston.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you live in Southie? I'm like,
South Boston.
I don't really like calling it Southie because Southie is associated with all the punk kids that live there now. But
you're getting old, man.
It is funny. I know. And then we got one from @PJC Carpentry. So since he left his handle, we'll get him some swag. Keep up the great content. I enjoy listening and following along. I'm glad there are others out there that are trying to shine a good light on contractors and the trades. So PJC Carpentry, I'll reach out to you on Instagram. We got some swag for you. If you guys want to buy some swag, head over to our Instagram or our iTunes profile. We have a link in there. Heads over to our Upstate merch store. And big thanks to Upstate Merch and our other sponsors, Duration Molding Millwork, Rental Run, and Rockwall.
Yeah, thanks to anyone who goes on and leaves a review, good, bad, whatever. Obviously, we appreciate the nicer reviews, but even going through looking at reviews that are more critical, that definitely helps us. Not that I'm advocating going on and blasting us, but there's things that we need to change and things that can go differently. And it regardless, you're taking time out of your day to go on there and give us some feedback, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler's right. It sucks reading some of the bad ones, and we know that the majority of them aren't. But when they are bad, if it's actually critical feedback, it is really important. And just to elaborate, Tyler and I had a really good conversation about the future of this podcast, and just to peel the curtain back a little bit, we're really committed to building this into something that truly changes the industry. So what I can say is that everything that we've done thus far is us just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, we realize, that it's time. We have to put time aside for this, and that it's no different than what we do in our daily careers and with our businesses and carpentry and building, whatever that may be. And it would be hypocritical to, live that lifestyle or kind of approach everything with that mindset when we're dealing with our industry and our primary projects, and then have this side project and kind of let things fall by the wayside or be on the back burner or kind of take shortcuts. So I think, we're realizing that we need to put the time and the effort and the preparation into this more and more so that we can, be of value to you guys. And I think that if we can provide something that's truly valuable to you guys on many levels, that it'll be rewarding for us as well. So without saying too much, that's kind of where we're headed and what we'd like to do. And we appreciate all the support getting there.
See you guys next week.